A Legacy of Love and Bravery. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, in a small village in the rolling hills of England, there lived a young girl named Elsie. She was known throughout the village for her quick wit and fearless spirit. Despite her small stature, she was always the first to volunteer for any task, and her bravery was unmatched. One day, while wandering through the woods, Elsie stumbled upon an ancient map. It showed the location of a hidden treasure, guarded by a fearsome dragon. Without hesitation, Elsie set off on her quest, determined to retrieve the treasure and restore her village to its former glory. As she journeyed deeper into the forest, Elsie encountered many obstacles and challenges, but she never lost hope. She battled giant spiders and outsmarted cunning thieves, always moving closer to her goal. Finally, she reached the entrance to the dragon's lair. The dragon was enormous, with fire-breathing breath and scales as hard as steel. Elsie stood her ground, ready for the fight of her life. The battle was fierce, with both sides showing their strength and determination. But in the end, it was Elsie's bravery and cunning that proved victorious. She retrieved the treasure and brought it back to her village, where it was used to bring new life to the land and its people. But this was only the beginning of Elsie's adventures. She was destined for greatness, and her journey was far from over. As she gazed out over the rolling hills, she knew that there were more challenges to be faced and more treasures to be won. With a glint in her eye, she set off on her next adventure, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And so, the legend of Elsie, the fearless adventurer, was born. Chapter 2. As the years passed, Elsie's fame grew, and she became known as the greatest adventurer in all of England. She traveled to far-off lands, seeking out new challenges and discovering long-lost treasures. She battled mythical beasts and solved impossible puzzles, always with a smile on her face and a twinkle in her eye. One day, she received a message from the king himself, requesting her assistance in solving a mystery that had plagued the kingdom for many years. A powerful artifact had gone missing, and the king feared that it could fall into the wrong hands and cause great harm. Elsie eagerly accepted the challenge and set off on her newest adventure. She traveled through dark forests and across treacherous mountains, facing danger at every turn. But she was undeterred, her spirit as fierce as ever. Finally, after many weeks of searching, she discovered the hidden location of the artifact. But as she reached for it, she was ambushed by a band of thieves who sought the artifact for their own selfish purposes. Elsie was outnumbered, but she refused to give up. With her quick thinking and lightning-fast reflexes, she managed to outwit the thieves and retrieve the artifact. But the adventure was far from over. As Elsie made her way back to the king, she knew that she had only scratched the surface of what lay ahead. There were still so many mysteries to be solved and so many treasures to be discovered. With a determined look in her eye, she continued on her journey, ready for whatever lay ahead. And so, the legend of Elsie, the greatest adventurer of them all, lived on. Chapter 3. Years passed and Elsie became an old woman, but her spirit was as adventurous as ever. She continued her quest for treasure and discovery, even in her old age. People from all over the world sought her out for her knowledge and her bravery, eager to learn from the greatest adventurer of all time. One day, a young girl came to Elsie seeking her help. She had discovered a map that led to a long-lost city, said to be filled with treasures beyond imagination. The young girl wanted to be an adventurer just like Elsie and asked her to join her on the journey. Elsie agreed, eager to share her knowledge and experience with the next generation. They set off on a perilous journey, facing challenges that they had never encountered before. Together, they discovered the lost city and claimed its treasure, but they also found something even more valuable: the friendship and bond that had formed between them. The young girl became Elsie's apprentice, and the two of them continued their adventures together, traveling the world and discovering its secrets. And so, the legend of Elsie and her young apprentice lived on, their tales of bravery and discovery inspiring generations to come. And even as they grew old and their bodies tired, their spirits remained as adventurous as ever, always seeking out the next challenge and the next treasure. For Elsie, the journey was never ending, and she knew that there would always be more adventures to be had, more mysteries to be solved, and more treasures to be discovered. And so, she continued on, her spirit as fierce and her heart as adventurous as the day she first set out on her journey. Chapter 4. As Elsie and her apprentice journeyed through the world, they encountered many people who sought their help. They were renowned for their bravery, intelligence, and kindness, and they were never turned away from those in need. One day, they received a summons from the Queen herself, requesting their assistance in solving a terrible crisis that was gripping the kingdom. A powerful sorceress had risen to power and was terrorizing the land, using dark magic to control the minds of the people. Elsie and her apprentice set off on their greatest adventure yet, determined to stop the sorceress and restore peace to the kingdom. They traveled through dark forests and over treacherous mountains, facing danger at every turn. Finally, they reached the sorceress's castle, and a fierce battle ensued. The sorceress was powerful, but Elsie and her apprentice were determined and fought with all their might. In the end, their bravery and cunning proved victorious, and they were able to break the sorceress's hold on the kingdom. The people cheered and hailed Elsie and her apprentice as heroes, and the kingdom was restored to its former glory. But Elsie and her apprentice knew that there would always be new challenges to be faced and new adventures to be had. And so, they continued their journey, always seeking out the next challenge, always determined to make the world a better place. For Elsie and her apprentice, the journey was never ending, and they knew that there would always be more adventures to be had, more mysteries to be solved, and more people to be helped. And so, the legend of Elsie and her apprentice lived on, inspiring generations to come with their tales of bravery and selflessness. Always reminding the world that the greatest treasure of all is the love and kindness in our hearts. Chapter 5. As Elsie and her apprentice traveled the world, they encountered many different cultures and people, and they learned much from their travels. They saw both the beauty and the cruelty of the world, and they made it their mission to use their knowledge and experiences to make a positive difference in the world. Years passed, and Elsie grew old and eventually passed away, but her legacy lived on. Her apprentice continued her journey, spreading her message of love, kindness, and bravery to all who would listen. The world changed and evolved, but the tales of Elsie and her apprentice remained as popular as ever. Generations of children grew up hearing their stories and were inspired to be brave, to be kind, and to make the world a better place. And so, the legend of Elsie, the greatest adventurer of all time, lived on, her message of love and kindness never forgotten. She will always be remembered as a symbol of hope and inspiration, reminding us that the greatest treasures in life are not the ones we find in the world, but the ones we carry in our hearts.